This is episode 387 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And like our brethren across the pond, we shall keep a stiff upper lip, keep calm, carry on. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you join us. Let's start off like a different virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hope everyone is doing well, all things considering. We're going to be doing things a little differently this week. So as much as we would love to do Kermit arm waving over all the stuff that came out of D23 Expo over the weekend, we're gonna have to put that on the back burner until next week, because we thought it was only appropriate considering how much the royals have been brought up in all the years that we've been doing this podcast in one way or another, and the fact that this is just such a historic occasion. And if we've learned anything from our history lesson through the lens of Billy Joel, is that history needs to be paid attention to.
Yes.
So I guess unless you've been living under a rock, or on a different planet, maybe, I'm sure at this point, everywhere across the globe, pretty much everybody knows that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed away at the age of 96. So dramatic. Which it is. I'm not entirely sure where to start with this, because this was so, like, we knew it was going to happen eventually. I mean, obviously,
Right.
Prince Philip passed last year, and you know, we dedicated an episode to him, and he was 99. But all things considering, I mean, the Queen, she was still out doing events and all the things that the Queen does, and even though she had to step back during her Platinum Jubilee celebration over the summer, she still was able to do some stuff, make a few public appearances. You know, she
there were even, she just welcomed a new prime minister, although like 2
literally
days before.
48 hours before she was greeting the new prime minister of England. So, you know,
but I will say those pictures, I'm like, ooh, she is starting to look a bit frail. So it was.
Yes.
I mean, she was looking her age. But just I mean, you look at the picture, she's holding a cane, you know, she's had the gray hair for a very long time. I mean, she looked like a 90-something-year-old woman, but she didn't look like somebody who was going to be dead 48 hours later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess her doctors are just doing their job through all that, because she was like, nope, right up until the end, doing everything, doing all of her duties, commitments, and just right up to the end, just she's the queen, she has a job to do, and she is going to do it.
Yeah.
Which, that kind of sums her up in so many ways.
Yes, it very much does. I mean, that just that keep calm and carry on, it applies to her among so many other people. And the powers that be, her press people and her physicians and stuff, obviously did, I think, what they thought best to kind of put out statements, kind of
Mhm.
not flat out saying like, "Oh, this is it,"
Yeah, but it
but
was
kind of
they
implying that y'all need to prepare yourself.
yeah, well, I mean, the
Mhm.
clues were there.
Yeah,
The BBC anchors were wearing black,
yeah.
and it was
And the
you could kind of tell that it
It,
was
it,
getting
it just the
close.
way they went about things, because
Mhm.
generally, if a member of the royal family, regardless of who they are, is finds himself ill and maybe even hospitalized, they usually won't say anything till after the fact.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like even when royal babies are born, they don't tell
Yeah,
you until the the mother to be is already in hospital.
right. Unless,
So
the
yeah,
paparazzi does what the paparazzi will do,
that's true. Yeah. So
Mhm.
the
which
fact that they
Yeah.
were
Mhm.
saying, she's ill,
mhm.
and they weren't taking her to the hospital, but they were saying words like she's resting comfortably.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
It's like,
She's at Balmoral Castle, and
yeah, which
everybody is converging over there, and it was like,
yeah, and the fact that
Yeah.
her
oh,
family was suddenly
mhm,
everyone was rushing to Balmoral to try to get there, and unfortunately, not everyone made it before she
Mhm.
passed,
mm,
um, which is unfortunate. But even as a royal, you can only make a plane go so fast or a helicopter go
Right.
so fast,
true,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
Balmoral is it's for Scotland, it is in the boonies.
mhm,
Uh-huh.
It's like I think they said like it's a 40-minute drive from the closest airport.
I wouldn't be
So
surprised. No, that sounds
yeah,
about right.
yeah. So
Privacy galore.
yeah, that's one of the reasons that this, the queen, but the rest of the family really love the
mhm,
Balmoral estate, is because it was so secluded from
yeah,
everything, and they could just,
Mhm.
the queen could go out her Land Rover and just drive around if she wanted to,
mhm,
They could let their
and
hair down.
yeah, the
yeah.
kids could just run
It's a
around
little
and be
more,
kids. Yeah, it was,
relaxed, and
yeah.
which, I mean, Scotland, c- you know, comparatively so, is in the boonies anyway, which is why I'm like, oh, that's like one of my places. Like, I would love to live there because it's just there's some places that are
Mhm.
just out of the way and away from people, but it's it was that morning when waking up just to the news and like, oh, she's this is happening and this is what's going on, and I was like, okay, this is if this is it, then she's had a good
Mhm.
run, and we kind of know that this would happen sooner or later.
Mhm.
And I was at work and I saw the news definitively that she had passed, and I was like, I am a lot sadder about this than I thought I would be. I mean, I knew I would be
Mhm.
Mhm.
sad,
Mhm.
but it was just this kind of heaviness all of a sudden, because you think about it, she was born, 1926, and she went, she watched her uncle abdicate the throne and her father take the throne, and and all of this during World War II. And I just think about like that generation that they are, they're passing, and because I remember like my grandparents, and I know like my dad would talk about people he knew that were in World War II or experienced things like that. And
Mhm.
where she was at the time, her father was the king, so but she was doing her bit, and all these things, all these stories about her volunteering and things like that. It's like it was such it was such a different generation, and it's one that I personally I look to, and I'm like, I want to hear your wisdom, I want to hear your experiences, I want to hear what you did and what advice do you have for us going forward, because you went through so much and because you experienced so many hard things. It's like, what can we learn from you that
Mhm.
we can, and it's just, and I just get that feeling like we just don't really value that kind of thing anymore, which is sad in my view. But where it's Queen Elizabeth, people still really liked her.
Mhm.
And they would listen to her, and I loved because William put out a statement that he said he was lucky to have his whole life with her wisdom and advice, and his wife knew her for 20 years, and all his children were able to know her and make memories. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's he's talking about her like she's his grandmother,
Yep.
obviously. And it was just so sweet because it's like, yeah, like she's the queen, and she is this figurehead. She's on the money and the stamps and all these things, but
Mhm.
when it comes down to it, she's also a grandmother. And I think a
Yep.
lot of people, not just her grandchildren and great grandchildren, I think a lot of people kind of looked at her like that
Yep.
because she was that, kind of had that sparkle and that little bit of mischief underneath all the
Yes.
dignity and
Mhm.
honor and stuff.
Mhm.
And so many stories have come out since then of people who met her throughout the years. And I can't remember who it was it Michael Caine? There was like a bit in his biography that I I think it was Michael Caine, but it was somebody's biography, like when they had gone to get they could become knighted or things. And then there's a lot of actors who that happens to, but then there's also people who are not in acting but things like you know tailors, or that they work with, or
Mhm.
they're janitors or things like that. And it was like, and in the thing it said, yeah, she didn't, she was polite to the actors, but you know, you know, Joe Joe janitor over there, like she would ask him about like what's the best cleaner to use, or there's a fabric maker who says like what asking him about best kinds of fabric to use for, I think it was like upholstery or something. It was something like that, something to do with fabric. And it was
Mhm.
so funny because it's like she gave like the attention to the blue collar, so to speak, blue
Mhm.
collar people. And like she's the queen, she doesn't need to do this, but she's like taking an interest in people who are like the lowest, you would think would be the lowest of the low. And nobody really talked about that when she was
Mhm.
alive. But it was just so cute to see these stories of how she would interact with just regular people when they met her, and they're probably like all starstruck and like, oh, it's the queen, and she's asking them like, well, how do you grow tomatoes, or or
Yeah.
things like that, taking an interest in what they're doing because she values them as someone. She is a servant. She obviously was born to it, but it's like public service, and these are people that
Mhm.
she is serving.
Mhm.
And I always kind of got that little bit of that sense of her when I would see her interact with people, and in photos and video and things like that. And the way whenever I would hear her give a speech, she would, I don't know, it just may I don't know, a lot of people see what they want to see, but I just kind of always felt that about her.
Yeah.
She
Well,
loved people.
yeah, because I mean, things like the being knighted and the
Hmm.
ranks leading up to that,
Hmm.
um, have been a long-standing tradition, I
Hmm.
believe even before her time,
Right.
but when she became sovereign, um, one of the things that she really strived to do, obviously, as the
Hmm.
times change, priorities change, the post-World War II, um, and all of that, but, there are a lot of other awards and recognitions that have been created in either in her name or by her for specific um opportunities to
Hmm.
um recognize the average member of her, either Britain or elsewhere in the Commonwealth. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the famous photo of her sitting next to Anna Winter at London Fashion Week. several years ago, because everybody knows Anna Wintour, head of Vogue with her trademark bob and her sunglasses she's always wearing, and then you've got the Queen sitting next to her right next to the runway. And the reason she was there is because they created this new award that I'm totally blanking on the name of it now, for up and coming young British fashion designers, and they were giving out to the award to the first recipient. So I mean, obviously with all the things that come with being queen, the head of state, obviously that puts her in charge of all the military, which there were some really great clips, I think going back to from the Diamond Jubilee, so 2012, and with William and Harry and a lot of the grandkids, the ones that are about our generation, Eugene, Princess Eugene and like that. And there's one clip where Harry was talking about, when both he and William did service, and Harry actually saw combat. He got deployed to Afghanistan, so he was in the British Army for like 10 years, and he's like, yeah, for 10 years she was essentially my boss. So it's like, she's grandmother, she's the queen. If you're in the military, she's also your boss.
Yeah.
She's all three.
Yeah. So it's like, that was the case for William too, but William was never deployed overseas, I don't believe.
Yeah,
I mean, you ask any of them and they're like, yeah, no, behind closed doors, she's grandma. Yeah. And I know that back, what was it, in the 70s, I think they portrayed at least part of it on The Crown, where they had like a documentary crew come in and film them to show it on TV, because Prince Philip thought it would be a good idea for them to show just how normal they are to to the public. And it's like, yeah, they kind of are. I mean, they have these really fancy titles.
Yeah,
but
like they're, like I said, like she's on the money. There's statues of her. She's in the history books. All these things. So she seems so far away and
up in the upper echelon. So
yeah, it's like untouchable, and like, no, you're a person who has a very big job. But yeah,
yeah. It's a job that I don't think most of us can comprehend.
Yeah.
Just how complicated and serious and just unfathomable how difficult that job can be. I mean, I know there's some people out there that are just anti-monarchy, not just the British, but just monarchy in general, that they don't care for it as an institution. And yeah, it's a bit dated, considering how, with 7 billion people on this planet.
I mean,
having somebody get to be in charge just because they were born into the right family, not necessarily proper representation for the average person on the street.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think there is a time and place for people in this kind of position, to kind of represent the leaders of whatever country it is you live in, and do all of the, I hate to say, I hate to call it fluff, because I mean, we all think of like, boat christenings and opening
Mhm.
train, the newest train
It's
station and the like. But
yeah,
there's also
it's
do a lot of they also do. I mean, the queen herself was the head, not just involved in, but the head, either the royal patron or president of like 500 different
mhm.
charities.
Yeah, and I think, you look at history, you look at, kings and queens throughout history, and you look at it, and when you get a good monarch in there, everyone loves them, they do a good job, and their focus is on what you know leading their people and doing it in such a way that it's, and representing your country, to other nations and things like that. When you get someone good in there, it's like, oh, you are so amazing, don't leave, we want you
Mhm.
forever. And then sometimes you get somebody in there who isn't so good, and that's where you get into a lot of trouble, and that's where you I mean, you know, history is ripe with kings and queens who were great and kings and queens who were not so great. But you could say the
Mhm.
same
Mhm.
thing about any other type of leader as well.
Mhm. We've
Just
all
the
seen
different.
Hamilton.
Oh
Yep. Oh yeah.
yeah, yes.
There
And
were
it's
issues on both
just
sides of the pond there.
yeah, and you
Uh-huh.
just it's just it's human nature, and you just when you get a good one, you're just like, "Oh, thank goodness we've got someone who knows what they're doing and
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
who isn't a complete tool." Um,
Right.
Let's
and
keep
Queen
you
El
along for as long as we possibly
which
can.
is why
Yeah.
we all said, "Oh, Queen Elizabeth, can you just stick around forever and just be everyone's grandma,
Mhm.
please?"
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because you were lovely. I mean, I'm not saying she was perfect. I'm certain, there. I mean, we watched The Crown. There are some things that she didn't quite do as well, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
we're gonna extend some mercy and grace to any human being. I think, and
Mhm.
for what she did and for what she represented and how she represented
And for how
herself
long?
and for how
Yes.
long,
Mhm.
I think she did a great job. And and the time period, I'm like, look at everything that happened when she was ruling, like,
I
Yeah,
saw I
that's
saw
a
I
lot of
saw
history.
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, just the nature of living on this planet. I saw a graphic somewhere and it said something like 95 or like 96% of the population on this planet was born while she was queen.
Yep.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
there's just
Yeah.
a small percentage of people on this planet that were born before she became queen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. that's
Yeah, so
That's
she's
saying a lot.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, just think of how much society has changed
Mhm.
since you graduated high school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean, yesterday was September 11th, and everyone was doing the whole, where were you? What was going on? And
Mhm.
and I was,
Yep.
I was in high school, and I look at like the last 20 years almost, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everything is so different. So then you
Mhm.
expand
Mhm.
that out to 70 years, which is, how long she ruled for, and I'm like, yeah, that 20 years, between 2001 and now, or 2021 years,
Mhm.
that's a drop in the bucket.
Yep.
Mhm.
Compared
Yep.
so it's just, you just kind of think about all these things, and and she just kind of more or less stayed the same sort of person. She just, I mean, she did what was necessary. She did what she had to do. She represented herself to other rulers, monarchs, presidents, prime ministers, all those sorts of
Mhm.
things, and everything that went on in Britain.
15 prime ministers
Mhm.
Yeah.
during her reign, 14 US presidents. And if you include those US presidents, over 110 heads of state from around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
and she visited every realm in that she was, over.
Mhm.
And every essentially every spot that she could just in Britain.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of ground to cover. I mean, the Commonwealth
Mhm.
obviously has gotten smaller during her reign. Um so
Oh, yeah, just, the nature of, you look at everything that happened after World War II and just how many countries just said, "Nope, we're independent. We're not
yeah.
colonies anymore. We're, all
And
this
there are
stuff."
some that are still aiming for independence. I know the people of Scotland are
Mhm.
with like their independence apparently.
Yeah.
Um
But it's just, yeah, it is fascinating. The most, I don't want to say mind blowing because that sounds way too BuzzFeed clickbait, but that's the only word I can think of. The
mhm.
biggest, the stat that blew my mind the most was her first prime minister was Winston Churchill, and he was born in 1874. Her last prime minister was this Liz Truss, who
Mhm.
she met with 2 days before her passing, and and Truss was born in 1975. So that is from prime minister to for first prime minister to latest prime minister. That is over
100 years.
130, 40, almost 150 years
Yeah.
of history, and just like, holy cow,
Mhm.
this is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And not the, and, and she was an active participant in a lot of that. She wasn't just,
Mhm.
some
She
person
she
watching it.
served during World War II as
She
a
did. Hmm.
mechanic. There are images of her, getting up
Mhm.
to her elbows in
Hmm.
the engines of
Hmm.
Jeeps and Land Rovers and, military vehicles. I mean, she could,
Hmm.
you know, fix a Jeep engine with the best. of
Oh,
them.
my favorite picture I saw over the weekend that someone posted, and this is, maybe like in the last 20, 30 years, she is standing next to someone in the armed forces with a rifle, and she is like looking like she's helping him hold it.
Mhm.
And her form is just perfect. Or, she's like, kind of checking out the balance of it or something. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, Queen Elizabeth, you are like, I know you've got a lot of grandkids, a lot of great grandkids, but you are my adopted granny.
Mhm.
It's
That
lovely.
speaking of the rifle, when I was scrolling through,
Mhm.
she must have been behind the scenes in like a racing garage or somewhere. So she's standing next to one of the racers, the hood's up, and she's checking out the engine and kind of
Uh-huh.
pointing at one of the parts
It's
of the
like,
engine.
no,
It's like,
no.
oh, cool. Yeah.
She was probably like, "Somebody grab me a number 2 spanner, please. This bolt needs
Exactly.
tightening.
Yes.
It's like, now
I
you've
think
got
you
the
could
wrong.
get a bit put a bit more torque here. I think you could get a few more RPMs out of it."
It's
Yeah.
like now this
Yep.
filter, where did you get
Uh-huh.
it?
Yeah.
And I don't know that you've gotten the right size yet or something.
Let's check the oil and make sure that's up to snuff.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I could just, oh man. I'm just picturing her. She's like somebody also, another thing that someone posted was you know comparing her to Betty White, because like Betty White is sort of our American um Queen Elizabeth in
Mhm.
Mhm.
in certain ways. I'm like, that's not a bad comparison.
No.
She was our American grandma.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then, the queen was our foreign grandma
Our
that
British
that
grandma.
had different but yet still interesting sweets
Mhm.
Yes,
in
exactly.
her purse, probably,
Uh-huh.
along with her marmalade sandwich.
Sandwich, yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Paddington, yes.
I
Oh,
revisited that video, and I'm like, oh, this is so
yeah.
sweet. It's like,
That and the opening, her bit with Daniel Craig from the
Yes.
2012 Olympics.
Yes.
oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And like,
Oh.
yeah, I love
She
all
was
those
all for that one.
Yeah.
Yes, like all those things. It's like, you know, like you saw her sense of humor just shine through, which you didn't often see in public, just because it wasn't appropriate all the time. But you know, when it
Mhm.
was the Olympics or her Jubilee, it's like, oh yeah, let's have some fun.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
there's
I'm
a
sure
video.
I'm sure her family saw that all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, even some of the people like Daniel Craig, he was on I'll have a link to it in the show notes. He was on Colbert like 6-8 months ago, finally when No Time to Die finally opened.
Mhm.
He's like, finally can promote that last Bond film. And Stephen Colbert asked him, about doing the bit from the Olympics, and Colbert was like, what is she like behind closed doors? And Daniel Craig was like, oh, she was very pleasant. She got a nice jab in on me, because they were taking besides the filming, they were taking some stills and stuff, like they do. And at some point the Her Majesty was like, she was like, oh yes, this one, he doesn't smile.
Ooh, she had a favorite Bond.
Yeah.
Like we all
Wonder
did.
whom. Yeah.
Like we all do. We all have our
Yeah.
favorites, and
Yeah.
and the Queen is
It-
no exception.
Yes.
Mhm.
Daniel Craig is like, yep. So he's like, and of course Colbert was like, what are the corgis like? He's like, I was down on the ground rolling around with them.
Right?
As you should.
Yeah. And for anybody
Absolutely.
wondering, because that was one of the first things that Chauncey said when the news broke that she had passed, is what's going to happen to her dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mhm.
this one was funny, and maybe it's a little bit of a dig at Harry and Meghan, but the Babylon Bee had a headline today, or was it yesterday, about how King Charles was going to put the Queen's corgis in Harry's place in the line of succession.
Yes,
Oh,
I
yes,
saw that.
Yes, I saw that too.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So because famously after the last corgi she had that was descended from her OG corgi
Mm-hmm.
passed, like 10 years ago or something like that.
Mhm.
She said that she didn't want any more because she didn't want to leave any behind
Mhm.
if they outlived her. But of course, people being people, she ended up getting gifted some.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
She got I think her last one, I don't think it was a corgi. I think I read somewhere that she got like
A dorgi, I think.
well, she had the dorgies too, but
Okay.
somebody had given her like something even smaller, like a Yorkie
Okay.
or something after Philip passed.
Okay.
And so yeah, she's leaving behind like 3 or 4 dogs. But I don't think the palace will probably ever say anything outright, but speculation is they will go to Queen Anne, Princess Anne, because Anne has several rescue dogs and has had corgis in the
Okay.
past, so she's familiar with the breed.
There
And
you
I also
go.
heard a rumor that Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were also supposed to take care of a couple, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
Considering where people, Andrew's standing in the family at the moment, I don't think he ain't getting shit.
he ain't getting a dog. He's already in the doghouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he got to walk behind with his brothers and sister earlier today to follow Her Majesty's casket to where it's now laying in state. They're still in Scotland.
Yeah.
Before it moves again to London later this week.
Mhm.
But Andrew was not allowed to wear his military dress. He had to wear
Oh.
his morning attire, so his tails, the kind of that suit that
Right.
British men wear with the jacket that doesn't have the lapels, but it's got the tails, and then the gray
Yeah.
pants. So he had to wear that instead of his military uniform because he's not allowed because he's in the doghouse, which we're not gonna.
Yeah, we
We're
won't go
not
there.
gonna go there.
He got heckled while they were walking along the cobbled streets of Scotland. Like
Yep.
it's like it's in this like tiny village because it's like a mile. They call it the Royal Mile. I don't know if it's literally a mile, especially considering they use the metric system. But it's probably figurative.
Yeah.
But it's this like tiny village that's on this road that's still cobblestone, so it's not even paved, and it's they got people hanging out windows and up on top of buildings, and on the
Right.
street they're like a dozen people deep. And of course it's 2022, so people got their cell phones out taking pictures and taking video and stuff, but everybody's quiet except for the occasional golf clap for the most part. And then one POS starts heckling Andrew, where we're having this solemn moment, and I guess enough people figured out where they were coming from, and the dude got arrested. So
yeah. I mean, there's a time and a place. Yes, he's whatever you think of him. But it's like time and place, guys. It's
this ain't the time or the place.
If you want to heckle him later.
Yeah.
Come on.
Send out an angrily worded tweet or something.
Yes.
But it's like
he probably
ain't
had
the venue.
He probably had his Twitter taken away if he ever had one.
Yeah. Maybe.
But anyway, I mean, there's a lot of people that have opinions about, the monarchy and, then Queen Elizabeth and the family in general.
Yeah.
Not all the family has exactly covered themselves in glory over the years.
Right. And there's something to be said about the damaging nature that can be imperialism and colonialism.
Right.
I don't, as funny as I like as it is to quote the the Eddie Izzard bit about flags. I claim India for Britain. Like, no, we live here. I'm like, do you have a flag? No flag, no country. Those are the rules. So
and history is not as cut and dry as like, ooh, these guys were bad and these guys were good. There's a lot of nuance there. Yet, I don't know. I think it's like that tradition, and it's not like we're whitewashing it or saying, ooh, it's all glorious and greatest, all the best. But at the same time, it also some of these traditions, they mean something to people. Do we really need the monarchy? I'm American. We've been pissing on monarchy since 1776.
Again, we've all seen Hamilton.
Yes, we've all seen Hamilton. We know how that one ended.
Yes.
At the same time, I mean, there's something kind of traditional about it, and something like the pomp and the circumstance and the ritual and the and all this kind of stuff. There's it's comforting
and intriguing too. It's
and intriguing, especially.
We don't have this.
We don't have this every.
That's the way I felt ever since. Because obviously I'm way too young to read. Well, William's older than me, but I would have been way too young when Harry was born. And of course, with Andrew and Sarah Ferguson and all those, whatever. Nobody cares about them.
But a lot of us remember
Beatrice and Eugene.
A lot of us remember Princess Diana,
right?
And the drama
there. Old enough to remember when William and Catherine got married, and they've had their 3 children, and what it was like with the birth of all 3 of their kids. And I don't remember which royal baby it was. It may have been the first one. It may have been Prince George. and somebody was like, why are you so excited? It's like, you're American. And like, it's like, it's almost as cliche as it is, it's almost like a fairy tale because we don't have these are literal prince and princesses. We don't have those. We
Right.
just
Yes.
have the ones in the Disney parks.
Yes.
Right.
And so like they don't really bother us. I mean, we we have presidents and senators and representatives. They come and go,
Right.
every 4, 6, 8 years, whatever the term is. But there was, the queen. She was always there. And she was there so long they put her on the money.
And now they got to reprint all that money.
Now they got to reprint all the money.
They got to reprint everything. I'm sure they've been ready with that for a while.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Although it was funny, like I was watching, this was a while ago, I was watching this video on, what happens when the queen dies, like how does the succession go? And it's like, okay, well here's, these little facts, but here's some things like historically that could happen that we might not be thinking about, and how like, they're talking about how, Charles might not go by Charles because the other two King Charleses that there have been have not really been all that great. In fact, one got beheaded, so he could, he could go by a different one of his middle names.
He could have used any one of his Christian given names. So I think Charles,
like there was Arthur,
Philip, George, or something like that. But...
And then they were like, oh, George would have been a good one, or Philip, or one of those things. But then it's like, no, he sees King Charles III. Like, oh, okay, well maybe he's trying to rehabilitate the name.
Maybe.
Or something.
I wouldn't mind there being a King Arthur.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
Although there is a bit of the myth where King Arthur is supposed to the King Arthur is supposed to return at some point. So someone was making the joke like if he tried to be King Arthur, the real King Arthur would show up and say, "Now wait a minute."
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
I see the memes with the King Charles Cavaliers. It's like this is King Charles. I'm King Charles.
I am Spartacus.
Yes. It's like, you're not King Charles. You don't even, your ears are not floppy. They're sticky uppy. Yeah.
They're not floofy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Significantly less hair, and your nose is very dry. Yeah, I would say with the names that he had to choose from, it's like, you could be Charles III, which is obviously what he has decided to go by.
Yeah.
Which is going to take some getting used to, referring him as King Charles.
Yes.
Especially with the dog breed.
Yes.
But it's like, if he tried to go by King Arthur, obviously that would make some people have a certain image. If he went by
Merlin
King
and Morgana.
if he went by King Philip, that was his father's name,
right? Yeah.
And if he went by George, then when George William's son becomes king, then what the George would have to decide, do we go George William George, or assuming William decides to go with his the name we know him as it is. So so it's just like, just go by Charles. So now he's Charles in charge.
Yes, there have been all
what you
the
did
jokes.
there.
The memes. This is how we handle our grief, people.
This is indeed.
Yeah. To quote Miss Scarlet and Clue, it's my defense mechanism.
Yes. Yeah, the memes and the jokes. But I don't know. The ones I really don't agree with are the ones that are like really denigrating Queen Elizabeth and some of the like blaming her for some of the crap her children have done. I'm like, they were adults when that happened. I don't think
there's
over that.
There's only so much Mama can do. I mean,
both as a mother and as queen, your power still only goes so far once your kids become adults and can make their own life choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, it is what it is, but I don't know. Like it's gonna take some getting used to. And William is now Prince of Wales, and where his father was, and then now we have a Princess of Wales again. Where his Princess of
Obviously,
Wales
we have not
has
had a Princess of Wales since Diana because
Yeah.
Camilla
Right.
decided to go by the Duchess of Cornwall instead.
yeah, which I kind of applaud her for that. That was a real
Yes.
classy
Yeah.
move.
Very
Yeah.
good on her for doing
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because everybody loved Diana, and everybody loves Kate, so she can
Mhm.
definitely be the Princess of Wales. But for a long time the Prince of Wales was Charles. So yeah, we gotta get used to all this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what Harry and Meghan decide to do.
Right, because now it sounds that their two
Their kids
kids
could
now
have
have-
titles.
I
But
thought
The thing
Charles
is
gave it already gave it to him from what I had read in
but
the
they don't
report, unless
have
I'm reading the
to.
wrong thing.
They don't have to take them though. Is the
Oh,
thing?
okay. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think Archie could have had one when he was born, and they chose not to.
Okay.
And then with Lilibet, I don't know if that was even on the table. I think they probably didn't even offer, because it's like, why have if the firstborn's not going to take one, why would the secondborn?
Right.
That would be
Right.
weird.
Mhm.
Because I believe it's not Sophie, because she's the Countess or Duchess of Wessex, so her kids have titles. I think it may be Zara Tyndall.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
Zara.
Her kids don't have titles.
Hmm.
Okay.
But
So-
they're not they're way further down the line.
That's
of
true. They're not
succession,
the
which is
direct
why
descendants of
Yeah,
of the crown, because Zara's one of Anne's kids.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, they're so far down the line of succession, but
Yeah.
I mean, even Archie and Lilibet are still pretty far down the line of succession,
Mhm.
that it
Mhm.
does not matter. And
Mhm.
since unless something happens that suddenly Harry and Meghan decide they want to start spending more time in with in the royal bubble,
Mhm.
I imagine they're probably going to continue things as is, and any
Yeah.
if how obviously you ignore the headlines, like the Mirror and the Sun and stuff, because they're
Oh,
all
yeah.
just trash. But I mean, obviously, if you've watched like the interview with Oprah with Harry and Meghan, there was some tension there at the very least. There's been some issues, but I think both William and Harry recognize how important family is after what happened with Diana, and how ostracized she was when she and Charles divorced.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That I don't think they would ever. I would like to think, and this is purely my opinion, I don't think they would
Mhm.
ever completely burn bridges between each other.
Right. Yeah.
But because Harry is so far in the line, he kind of can go and carve out his own life, because like, well, not to be completely morbid about it, but not counting his father, 4 people would have to die.
Right.
His brother and all of his brother's children would have to die before Harry ever had a chance of becoming king.
And
Mhm.
Mhm.
So why not
yeah.
allow him to go and carve out his own life with his wife and his children and do their thing? They were very fortunate that they were already on that side of the pond.
Right.
They were in
Yes.
Germany because they're getting ready for the Invictus Games, which is a huge thing that Harry started even before Meghan came into the picture.
Yes.
Right.
That was
So-
that when I heard of when that first started, I'm like, okay, Harry, you're not the little turd that I thought you were.
Mhm. He had some growing up to do, but once
He did. He did.
once he did, it's all good.
Yeah.
And I think, all things considering, considering the kind of fishbowl that he grew up in.
Right.
You can't blame him.
You can't
In a
blame him
way.
for wanting to go off and, you know, just be a
Mhm.
husband and a father and a philanthropist and, you know, do their own thing. You know, it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like they can't just hop on a plane and
Yeah,
go visit.
Right.
Yeah.
it's true.
So
But
but that again, that's my 2 cents. I'm
Yeah.
purely
And who knows,
speculation.
maybe during this time, maybe some more bridges can get mended, maybe, hopefully.
Mhm.
yeah.
I would
So,
I would hope so. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they the William and Catherine and Harry and Meghan did do a walkabout yesterday.
right. And from the sounds of things, it was William who had texted Harry because they had heard rumors that it was Prince Charles who had said, "Hey, your brother needs to be here." But I think it was William who had extended the thing to Harry, and they both showed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's just from what it sounds like, from what I was watching on the day she passed, that Harry did not make it to Balmoral in
right.
time.
Yeah, I wondered.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
it had already been announced in the live feed I was watching from the BBC or whatever, and they were like, "Yeah, we're still waiting for Harry to show up." So
man.
yeah, I did, like I said, even as a royal, you can only make planes go so fast and cars go so fast, and
Yeah.
even you're like, oh, he was only in Germany, but you know, that's still
You still have traffic.
you
Even
Right.
I came from the
traffic and-
airport.
yeah,
And
you-
all the
you know,
prep, because you don't want to have a royal accident while traveling on a
Yeah.
airplane.
Let's not. I mean, we're grieving enough. Let's
Right,
not
exactly.
around it here, people.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes you just don't make it. I mean, I'll say
Right.
this by like when my grandfather passed away, and my mom had told me this was like a Sunday night, and she's like, "Yeah, like here he is. If you want to go, see him, he's not doing so good." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can probably go, on Monday afternoon." And then Monday morning, well, actually, no, it was Sunday night because I was checking Facebook and my aunt had already posted about it.
No,
Yeah, and I
Oh.
was like, and my mom hadn't even had a chance to call us kids, and I was
Ooh.
like, well,
Uh,
yeah.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
it happens
yeah.
fast.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
my grandmother was living in a completely different state, and you know, she hadn't necessarily been like ill. I mean, she's
Yeah.
old, but you know, things that come with being old. But yeah, she just one day the people that she was living with called the house, and I was the only one home. My mom wasn't even home, and so they didn't
Oh.
tell me. They just were like, have your mom call us when she gets
Yeah.
home. So it wasn't until she got home and called and she found out, and so yeah, it's one of those things, and unfortunately, so
Yeah,
my guess is whatever it was, she went downhill really fast because, like I said, she does not look like somebody who's going to die 2 days later in the last
No.
knowledge that we have of her.
I mean, she looks older, but it's like, no, she's fine. She's just
Yeah, she's just an old lady.
yeah.
She's
It's like
yeah,
she's not gonna get up
grandma.
and she's not gonna get up and do cartwheels across the sitting room floor.
She's not gonna be
No.
jumping out of helicopters with James Bond again anytime soon. But
No.
she probably would mind, sitting down for tea and a marmalade sandwich again with Paddington.
Yeah. But it was because I saw that and I'm like, oh, she's getting a little older, but that's okay. She's 96.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 days later, oh, she's not doing so good. Oh no, I just saw her in pictures with the new prime minister. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
The legacy she's leaving behind.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
yes. Well, first of all, if your legacy includes William and Kate and their kids, forget everything else. You did
Yeah.
good.
Fair play to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Andrew, just go back to the doghouse. We're gonna be over here with the cool kids.
Andrew, we wish you could
Yeah.
say we were adopted like Loki, but we
Yeah.
can't.
although the youngest is it Edward?
I
Yes.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty solid. Like what I've read read
he's
about
low
him.
key
I mean,
from
yeah.
what I've.
he's like one of the few who hasn't gotten into trouble ever. Which I'm like,
Mhm.
man,
Yeah.
It's,
let's hear
it's
more about
probably
you.
yeah, it's probably easy when you're the one that people forget you exist in the first
Yeah.
place.
Mhm.
Yeah, and his
Mhm.
kids are a lot younger too.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
But his
Well,
it-
it seems to me that despite Andrew's really poor choice in friends,
Mhm.
choices and friends,
Choices and friends
Yes.
from the other side of the pond, no
Yeah.
less.
yeah.
At
Mhm.
least Eugene and Beatrice seem to have
Yes.
level heads on their shoulders. So
Yes.
Probably thanks to Mama.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they seem
Yeah.
like they're both married and moms now.
Mhm.
So
And their
they've got
husbands
priorities.
their husbands seem
Yeah.
pretty solid too. So it's like, you
Yeah.
know what? The grandkids are all right.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
grandkids kind of seem to shy away from controversy for the most part.
For the most
so-
part.
Once they
yeah.
get out of the crazy teenage years, yes.
Yes.
Yes, and be honest, like the rest of us, didn't we all have our crazy teenage stupidity?
Oh, don't
Mm.
even. I don't even want to think about
Yeah.
some of the stupid
I-
things I did
I just spent
30 years ago.
Friday
Yeah.
and Saturday. We
Not that
did
long.
I'm going to go on a little
25.
tangent here. Yeah, Friday and Saturday, Jared and I were doing Toshokan, which is the library's anime convention for teens exclusively. So it's just teenagers. There's some parents who come if like their kids coming are like 12 and 13 and they're kind of young, but for the most
Mhm.
part it's teenagers. And I'm like, wow, I remember being this dumb. And I mean, it was innocent fun. Nobody
Yeah.
got in any big trouble, and we did have to chase off a few weirdos that were lurking around outside. But for the most part, everyone had a good time. There were just some things I'm like, oh gosh, I am so old. But I remember, being this dumb.
The technology wasn't that great at the time, so there's not that much of a record of it.
That's
Yeah,
true.
thank
There's
you.
no
Now
evidence.
there's a
Yeah.
big time record.
Yeah, it's like all those TikToks and Instagram reels. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't like. I mean, William and Harry and all their cousins and stuff. They had the paparazzi to deal with, and that is very unfortunate,
Yeah.
especially given how Princess Diana passed. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like these days kids are all like posting all their dumb crap on TikTok.
Yeah.
But
We sound like a
Anyway.
bunch of crotchety old ladies.
we do.
Right?
No, I felt like a crotchety old lady all weekend. Honestly, I'm
Yeah.
like, what are these kids doing with their?
And you're just thinking to yourself, now, guys, when you get older, how are you going to explain this to your grandkids?
I mean, you are at they are at a library, event, and we do have to maintain a certain number of standards and
Yes.
policies. But even then, it's like, oh gosh.
Mm.
But anyway, that was a tangent just because it was on my mind, like dumb teenagers, and I'm like, I was a dumb teenager, so I'm not throwing stones.
Right.
I'm just like, I
Mhm.
remember what it was like, and I remember all the stupid things we did. And I listen, I'm like, yeah, you're gonna look back on this sort of thing, and I mean, I hope you have good memories of it,
Yes.
but at the same time, I kind of hope that you did not get some sense knocked into you at some point, preferably not permanently injurious sense.
Right. Yes.
Let's not do the sadder but wiser route. Just learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to our dearly departed Queen Elizabeth, because
Mhm.
some of her, I don't know, and well, I mean, even Charles, like, he seems like he's mellowed out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he is 73.
Well, he is
Yeah.
73, but I mean, like, there were a lot of That's not what I meant.
Yeah, I know. I know.
We know what you're getting at.
Yes, I know. It's
I
like
mean,
at the same time, he is 73.
speaking of adults doing dumb things, like
Yeah.
Mhm.
the teens, I will overlook. Adults, not so much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once that frontal lobe fully develops,
Yeah.
You ain't got
All
no
bets
excuse.
are off.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
And-
yeah, I mean, I did watch the speech that he made. Guess it was yesterday. I watched that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, you are like so sweet right now.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
And even one of the commentators said, out of all the monarchies and all the royals, he's probably got, I mean, it's going to be a tough job, but it's kind of going to be a little bit easier for him because his mom set all this stuff up and he's seen her in action and how it's
Yeah.
done.
yeah,
Some
So
of
he's
some of the commentators are like, yeah,
years.
he's had decades in this internship.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be
So-
that hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
my favorite one, and this is an older one. It's been around, but it's like, take your kid to work day, and it's the Queen and Charles sitting as like opening Parliament. I think it was what they were doing, and it's from not that long ago. So
Yeah. And yeah, obviously right now, yeah, the entire country, and I'm sure a good chunk, yeah, officially the country is in a period of mourning.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's at least some of the Commonwealths probably are doing something similar, but not. You can't have all of the Commonwealth suddenly like stop for 10 days because that would probably kill the global economy. But the wild thing is we're gonna go through this mourning period, and the next few days actually I think are gonna be on the quieter side because Her Majesty's body is gonna be laying in state for several days before it gets moved again. And then the funeral is a week from us recording this, so next Monday the 19th, which I have a doctor's appointment early that morning anyway, so it's like, hey, I was gonna have to get up anyways, but I was gonna get up and watch it live anyway, because it's gonna be like 6 a.m. where I am for when it starts. But eventually, I don't know what the protocol, if there is, as far as waiting time, because obviously Queen Elizabeth, she became queen immediately, because that's the way it works, when her father died. And when you think about it, how she ended up becoming queen is
very
things had to happen in a certain way, because her uncle hadn't abdicated, if they hadn't put up the stink about Wallace Simpson, and it kind of forced King Edward's hand to choose between the crown and this woman. And he hadn't abdicated, she never would have become queen, because her father never would have become king. But because Edward abdicated so he could run off with Wallace, King George happened, and that immediately put her next in line. And then her father died so young. She married Philip, when she was 21, and was doing the princess thing for like 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden her father just up and dies while she's overseas on a touring the Commonwealth with her husband, kind of an extended honeymoon.
Although the fact that it was George and not Edward, just in terms of history, and because Edward had some sympathies, certain directions.
Really bad taste in friends.
But George had none of that, and so it's like all these things, like he
just had a stutter.
He had a stutter, and he had to overcome that. and it's kind of like looking at history and like, yeah, someone's out there just pulling a few strings just to make sure that we're not completely up a creek
Right,
in
exactly.
terms of global leadership and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that. So
But
it is remarkable, and who knows what, and it's all
then-
because Edward had to chase American divorcee tail.
yeah. Well, again, we're Wallace Simpson aside, they're
Yes.
very terrible taste in friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was the
So-
30s and 40s in Europe, people, folks. You know what was happening.
Yeah.
And damn
But
Kaiser.
anyway,
Among
yeah.
other
Dang it! Why did you? Like Archduke. Why'd you have to go and get shot? That's really where it all stems from. But yeah. Anyway,
but she, on for all intents and purposes, she was queen, but her coronation was not till the following year. I'd imagine we're probably going to have a similar period where, yes, technically Charles is king, but we are going to have the pomp and circumstance of a coronation at some point, probably next year.
Yeah,
right.
It's like let's let the queen have her, celebrate her life and her, have her funeral, her burial, and give it some time, some space to breathe before we're like, okay, party time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
coronation, everybody. Well, now it's like it was such a big deal because when she was had her coronation, it was such a big deal because TV was a brand new. So a lot of people were having you had maybe one or two people on your block that could afford to buy a TV in the first place. So suddenly you had all your neighbors in your living room to watch the coronation.
The big old block parties. Yep.
Now we're gonna have people watching on their computers and on their cell phones.
Yeah, on their phones.
Yeah.
And
all over the world.
We'll still have parties though, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. There will be
it'll be a big to do.
There will be jammy Dodgers and tea aplenty.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Which I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to it because we've not got to experience this thing.
Yeah, I mean we've had a couple royal weddings, which have been a lot of fun, and royal babies and things, and we have to have a royal funeral, which sucks.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I've never seen a coronation.
Nope. Not live, no. We can all watch the video of hers, but
none
of us were alive when that happened.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
some of us, our parents weren't even alive.
No,
really.
Grandparents, yes. Parents, no.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I was saying to Chauncey the other day, because of the way the timing happened. She was the longest serving British monarch. She was the second longest just monarch anywhere in the world. I think what was it, King Louis XIII, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
beat her, and that's because he became king when he was like 12 or something.
When you're that young and you
you have a little advantage.
He got her beat by a little bit.
Yeah.
When you become king, when you're still in diapers, essentially.
Pretty much.
That Charles is now king at 73. So even if he lives as long as his mother, his father, even his grandmother, the Queen Mother, she was what, 101, 102 or something like that when she died?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in triple digits. So, if the genetics work in Charles's favor and he gets 25, 30 years, left in his lifespan, at least for us, and I'm saying this to Chauncey, we're going to go through this again in our lifetime. We're going to see William become king.
Right.
Well, I mean, William is, kind
in
of
his
early
40s.
Yeah.
He's about our age.
Yeah.
Most of them. Sorry, Brittany.
No,
youngster.
I
Yeah.
remember when I was, when I was like 10, 12, and I was like, "Oh, William, he's so cute." Oh, he's so much older than me, but it's only like by what, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
I mean, back then that seemed like insurmountable, but I'm like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
But no, he and
Mhm.
Kate are great together. I love Kate. I'm like, "Oh,
Yes.
you're
Oh
great.
yeah.
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 You're gonna be
He
wonderful."
done good, and
He
she's
Yeah.
gonna
did. He did.
she's gonna make a fabulous Princess of Wales and eventually Queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
William was born in 82.
82. Okay, so he's
yeah,
3
so
years older than
he's
me.
a year older than me.
Okay.
So
And he's, let's see, I was born in 79, so I'm older than him by about 3 years.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and Catherine's about the same age. She just turned 40
Yeah.
Mhm.
and not even the last year or so. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. If like I said, if genetics work in Charles's favor, which seems to be the case with this family,
Yeah.
uh, the previous monarch notwithstanding her, King George.
Mhm.
Well, that might have been a bit of a fluke,
Yeah. Yeah. So, but
but we'll
yeah.
see. So, yes,
It's going to
history
be
is
interesting to watch things play out over the next week or
Mhm.
so, and then whenever they, finally schedule Charles's coronation ceremony to see that play out, and to see what happens as far as where the country goes
Mhm.
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 going forward.
Yeah,
So
and just kind of see, and I don't know. I think where the monarchy is just sort of a figurehead. I was like, I don't know. It's it's just sort of a comforting thing. Like
Mhm.
and it just keeps going on and
yeah,
continuing.
there's
Very
a,
few
I
things
was
are
yeah
that
I
are,
was
are
I
that
was
reliable.
yeah I was saying to Nick in our chat,
Mhm.
and he's obviously, the Italy is not part of the Commonwealth.
Right.
They're their own people. Um yeah, although they do have the Pope. Uh so,
Mhm.
um although Vatican City is its own country,
Yes,
recognized, place.
that is
But
true.
still,
But still,
geographically, uh
yeah, you
uh
visit Rome, you can visit the Vatican.
yes, exactly. And I asked Nick, I was like, will your, Italy acknowledge anything? He's like, well, the president might, because they've got a president. So he's like, the president might say something, the Pope will probably say something. Even though the Queen was Christian, not Catholic, but still, the sovereign is the head of the Church of England. So I guess from one head of one church to another.
Well, the
Mhm.
leaders of my church put out a statement about it and
Mhm.
praised her. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
But yeah, he's like, nah, we Italy probably won't do a whole lot because they're not really connected. And
mhm.
I was like, yeah, it's like, if it be the case here. I obviously COVID is unfortunately still a bit of a concern, but I would imagine that a lot of heads of state, including our current president, will at least be invited to the funeral, even if they can't make it, because
Mhm.
it's just courtesy.
Yeah.
Um, um, so we'll see some familiar faces at the funeral on Monday, um, more than likely, because it's a big deal.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that we've known what the protocol was going to be for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Operation London Bridge. Although I guess
And
because she
a
was in Scotland, it's Project
unicorn.
Unicorn. Uh, um, and I was the thing I was watching earlier with the video and the person heckling Andrew. The commentators, the news commentators are all like, yeah, it's at least as far as logistics are concerned, it worked out well that she passed in Scotland, because if she had passed in London, they would have had to figure out how to get her body to Scotland so that
That's right.
the people of Scotland could have the opportunity to pay their respects and then take her back to London, where they will have the big state funeral on Monday. Because what they've done, and the plan is that she has now been moved to St. Giles Cathedral in Scotland. And they had the I think it's called the Vigil or something of the Princes, where her 4 children, so King Charles and Anne and Andrew and Edward, went in, each stood on one side of her coffin for like 15 minutes or something like that, while the church is open for the people to come through and pay their respects. And then they've had a service in Scotland for the public, and so she will, and the King Charles is doing a kind of a tour of the UK, along with the Prime Minister Truss. So they're going to, he went to Northern, he'll go to Northern Ireland tomorrow as we're recording this, and then Wales on Friday. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, September 13th, the Queen's coffin will start the journey from Scotland to London, accompanied by Princess Anne. She's been doing most of the accompaniment. And it will move to Buckingham Palace. And then on Wednesday, it'll be moved from Buckingham Palace to the Palace of Westminster, where she will lie in state until the morning of the funeral. So she will lie in state at Westminster Hall for the public to come by until Monday morning. And then they will have the service at Westminster Abbey, of course. And then they will have another service at St. George's Chapel. I could speak, in Windsor, and then she will be laid to rest next to Prince Philip. So yeah, that's where we're at as far as the next week is concerned. So bit more traveling, but by Wednesday evening ish, if you're in London, you obviously expect very long lines. Be prepared to wait, but the public will have an opportunity in London to pay their final respects. There are books for people to write their condolences at a lot of the embassies, and the people are still placing flowers and the like outside of pretty much every residence.
Yes.
Apparently every florist within, like, I don't know, whatever radius of at least Buckingham Palace is completely sold out of flowers. So they're asking people to take flowers to alternate locations, just because the sheer quantity of them is so great. So if you've not made the pilgrimage yet and you're thinking about wanting to place flowers or something, you may want to check where's the best place to do that. And I just for a little extra kind of trivia / research, because they made sure to note the flowers that are on the wreath that's currently on her coffin, which is comprised of flowers from the Balmoral estate.
Yeah.
And especially the Brits, going back a long time, the language of flowers is a big deal. It's like every royal wedding we've had, they always make note of what flowers are in the bride's bouquet because they
Yes.
have meaning. So for those that may be curious, the current wreath that is on Her Majesty's coffin, which these are all flowers that came from the estate of Balmoral, um, probably helped with being pollinated by her bees, which the royal this is the thing again, it's, you know, whatever you feel about the monarchy and whatever, but all the tradition and everything I just find fascinating. There's something just very old fashioned about it that I just find very comforting. And apparently Her Majesty had quite the I don't know what the
Apiary?
I don't know what the proper terminology is. I'm just gonna call community of beehives at several estates, which I mean, obviously bees very important to the environment, so good for
Yes.
the royals to help keep, you know, helping with the bee population. But there is an old Celtic tradition that goes back, you know, several centuries, that if you have beehives, whoever the quote unquote owner of the hives dies, someone has to go to the hives and tell the bees
Oh.
that their owner has passed away. And if someone is now going to be their owner, you need to tell them, the bees, who their new owner is, and that they will be as good of an owner as their previous owner so they can continue their hard work, because there's this Celtic kind of superstition that if the bees didn't have an owner, that they would stop doing their job and then the crops would suffer. So the royal beekeeper had to go and go to each hive and tell them, your owner, the queen, has passed away, but you have a new owner, King Charles, and he will, you know, he will be a very good owner for you, essentially. So.
And the funny thing is
so
Diana
cute.
Gabaldon's most current Outlander book, the title of the book is "Go Tell the Bees I
have
Gone."
Yes. Yeah. So we're just gonna assume that these flowers were you know, help pollinated by the queen's bees, that hopefully they are fine with Charles as their new leader and will continue to do a good job. So, but the current wreath is consisted of dahlias, which mean good taste, sweet peas, which mean blissful pleasures, goodbye, and thank you for a lovely time. Phlox, PHLOX, compatibility, partnership, harmony, and unity. White heather, protection, wishes will come true. And pine fir, which means humility and piety. So those are
very fitting.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure that they weren't just like, oh, those are pretty, let's use those. That somebody was well aware of what flowers were available to them and the meanings behind them. So they just, when it's stuff like this, they don't do anything just for the sake of doing it. Everything has meaning behind it. Which, you know, for some people would be like, oh, that's old fashioned, you know, get with the times. But think there's something to be said for tradition.
Oh yeah.
In cases, like I said, I think there's a time and place for the tradition, the pomp, the circumstance, and all, and the circus, and the all the stuff that comes with the position that these people are in.
Mhm.
And it's sad. There were several times on Thursday that I found myself choking up.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Especially seeing some of the images of just the average person on the street, either outside of Buckingham Palace, or the
Mhm.
people that had got as close as they could to the Balmoral estate as humanly possible.
Mhm.
Seeing all the flowers and the candles, and
Yeah.
all the things that the people have left, and seeing people in crying.
Yeah.
It is sad, as Americans. Yeah, she's not really anything good to us, because we were like, no, we don't want to be part of England anymore. We're gonna go do our own thing.
But I mean, we
Um
have a long-standing relationship
yes,
because
we
I
do
mean,
have.
Yeah. We're
because
sort
they
of like
even
we're sort of like amicable exes
yes,
Yes.
because
yes.
we're
Mhm.
still
Well, and
friends.
remember what happened after September 11th. 2
Mhm.
days after, she called an audible and had the United States national anthem play for those Americans who were in London at the time. I mean, that
Mhm.
was like,
Or
wow.
having a not as extensive, but having a period of mourning after President Kennedy was assassinated.
That that too, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, it is
And
we're amicable exes. That's a good way.
mhm,
That's a good way of putting
way
it.
to put it,
So
Chris. And I even
Yes.
teared up today because I had watched a little news report, and Kate had, when they were doing that walk, she had passed along what Louis had told her. She's just like,
the
"Don't worry,
Gran is
Mama."
with
Great
grandpa.
grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I teared up at that. I'm
Yeah.
just like, out of the
That's just.
mouths
I mean,
of
he's
babes.
4. I mean,
Yes,
it's
Yes.
just,
yes,
it's so profound coming out of the mouth of a 4-year-old.
You
yes.
know,
So
kids say things that you're just kind of like, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. I have
yes.
2 of them in my house, and
Yeah.
sometimes they just have these little profound moments of clarity, and I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Those little nuggets.
yes. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, you know what? I could listen to 100 sermons and not get near as much not get near as much spiritual uplift as what I just heard from you.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
So, yeah. R.I.P. Queen
Mhm.
Elizabeth II.
Yes.
You will
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
much be missed, but
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your life with us.
Mhm.
Hmm. The good and the bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and for what it's worth, there's obviously The Crown, which
Mhm.
was number 1 trending on Netflix that day. No
Oh, I'm
surprise
sure.
there.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, obviously a lot of the series and the movies and stuff have some artistic license tied to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But go watch The Crown. It's really good, and both Claire Foy and Olivia Colman did
Yeah.
fantastic jobs portraying her Majesty
Mhm.
in those
Yes.
time periods. Obviously, we still have 2 more seasons to go with. It'll be interesting to see, because I think we're supposed to get season 5 this November or something like that.
I think.
Yeah,
Um,
it's coming up quick.
Mhm.
Right. And then the very
Please.
last season is going to be the closest to real time. It'll be interesting to see if they end up putting this in the final season, if they decide to just kind of tie it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard, that the creators said that once what they have done is done, they aren't gonna
Yeah, because they were wanting to
Go
end the
farther.
series after 6.
Mhm.
Anyway, we were going to get 2 seasons essentially with each actress as
Mhm.
as the queen. So we'll get Imelda Staunton, in to see her soon-ish,
Mhm.
for her go. Um, but then there's also the movie The Queen with
Mhm.
Helen Mirren,
Yep.
Mhm.
and Michael Sheen as Tony Blair.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
so which is I think Helen Mirren does a really good job in
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Again,
Mhm.
artistic license with
Yep.
how, things that were said behind closed doors. But it's still a really good portrayal, and Michael Sheen made a great Tony Blair too. So
Mhm. Yes.
a little biased in that case.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean the royal family, not just the current one, but the royals have been portrayed in media for the longest time. Diana's had several films that just focus on her. Obviously, Kristen Stewart's
Mhm.
most recent, and then was it Naomi Watts that played her several years ago.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and then Elizabeth I,
Mhm.
Mhm.
in Shakespeare in Love, which we'll cover on Gold Standard eventually.
Mhm.
So with Judi Dench as
Yeah.
Elizabeth I. So
Yep.
so yeah, there's
And
there's a lot of royal related stuff out there to
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's the stuff that comes from the source itself, the royal, the royal website,
Yep.
which you can go to. There's an official channel on YouTube, so you can watch things on there. I think they have like the entire like ascension ceremony construct thing that they had, where Charles had to sign some paper saying, yes, I will be king, this is going to be
Mhm.
my name, essentially. That's up for you to watch. So, and there's the royal family on other social media as well. There's a Facebook and a Twitter. William and Catherine have their own Twitter. So yeah, there's a
Yep.
lot out there, and we
There
will have
is.
links to quite a bit in the show notes. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and definitely go sign the condolence book if you haven't already.
Mhm.
Just cause
Yeah.
it's online. It's not an actual book.
yeah, there's
But
an
and I think
online.
we link to it on our Twitter, I know for sure. Probably on Facebook too. Or we'll put a link in the show notes, but there you go.
Yeah.
So check all that out, and yeah. So anything else we want to cover before we close up?
Mm.
Okay.
No,
Well,
I don't think so.
all
I
right.
don't think
Well,
so.
if any of our listeners want to share their thoughts on Queen Elizabeth II, or any of our other topics we've covered, and we didn't do the news this week because I wanted to focus solely on this on paying tribute to Her Majesty.
Mhm.
But you can send us some feedback if you would like. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com, to find links to show notes, like I said, ways to support the podcast, and our YouTube channel and Facebook and all those other things, and leave comments if you would like. And as always, we thank you for your support. We thank you for listening to us, listening to our ramblings and tangents, and just being there and interacting with us however it is you choose to do so. And take care out there. Hope you all are doing well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So we will hopefully, uh, life permitting, We will get back to the regular swing of things next week. So, but for now, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I don't think there's much more we can say, but thank you, ma'am. You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.